Adam Thomas never intended to make a friend from another dimension. He certainly didn't plan on that friend being an alien female whose presence threatened the stability of his entire space station. Yet here he was, staring at the shimmering form materializing before him in the maintenance bay of Nexus 7. The experimental teleportation device hummed ominously, its circuits smoking from the unexpected surge of power. Adam's fingers hovered over the control panel, frozen in place as he watched the dimensional rift pulse and contract. A figure stumbled forward, disoriented and clearly frightened. She was humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue luminescence, and her eyes, wide with fear, were deep pools of violet. Adam's engineering mind raced, cataloging the differences, even as he raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "It's okay," he said softly, taking a cautious step forward. "You're safe here." The alien woman, Tara, he would later learn, backed away, her gaze darting around the cluttered maintenance bay. Adam felt a sudden, inexplicable urge to comfort her, to explain the strange human technology surrounding them. As he approached, a wave of dizziness washed over him. His heart raced, and he felt an intense, almost primal attraction building within him. Adam shook his head, trying to clear the fog of desire. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew he needed to focus. This woman needed help, and as the only human present, it was his responsibility to provide it. "I'm Adam," he said, tapping his chest. "This is Nexus 7, an interstellar space station. Can you understand me?" Tara nodded slowly, her posture relaxing slightly. Adam felt a surge of relief, quickly followed by another wave of attraction. He gritted his teeth, fighting the urge to move closer. "Let me show you around," he offered, gesturing to the various equipment in the bay. As he explained the basics of human technology, he noticed Tara watching him intently. There was something in her gaze beyond simple curiosity, a calculating look that made him uneasy. As they exited the maintenance bay, Adam's mind raced. He needed to report this incident, to find a way to send Tara back to her own dimension. But a part of him, growing stronger by the minute, wanted her to stay. Their progress was halted by the arrival of Dr. Elena Petrov, the station's lead xenobiologist. Her eyes widened as she took in Tara's alien appearance. "Adam, step away from her," Dr. Petrov ordered, reaching for her communicator. "We need to initiate quarantine protocols immediately." Security officers appeared moments later, moving to escort Tara to the medical bay. Adam felt a surge of protectiveness, stepping between Tara and the officers. "I'm coming with her," he insisted, his voice leaving no room for argument. In the medical bay, the situation quickly deteriorated. Initial scans revealed that Tara's biology was incompatible with the station's life support systems. Dr. Petrov's face was grim as she delivered the news. "We need to find a way to send her back," she told Adam. "It's not just for her safety. She could potentially contaminate the entire station." Adam nodded, his mind already racing with possible solutions. "I'll lead the research team," he volunteered. "We'll modify the teleportation device, find a way to reverse the process." As he spoke, he noticed other male crew members entering the medical bay. Their gazes locked onto Tara, a mixture of fascination and desire in their eyes. Adam felt a surge of jealousy, followed quickly by confusion. What was happening to him? Station Commander Jackson arrived, his expression stern. "Thomas, I need you to focus solely on the scientific aspects of this situation. Limit your interactions with the alien. Is that understood?" Adam agreed, but internally, he was already planning ways to spend more time with Tara. He didn't understand the pull he felt toward her, but he knew he couldn't simply abandon her to the cold protocols of the station. As he turned to leave, he caught Tara's eye. There was something in her gaze, a determination, a hunger, that both thrilled and terrified him. Adam Thomas had wanted a friend, but he was quickly realizing that Tara had something else entirely in mind. Adam left the medical bay, his mind racing with conflicting emotions. He couldn't shake the image of Tara's piercing violet eyes, or the strange pull he felt towards her. Despite Commander Jackson's orders, he found himself drawn back to the maintenance bay where it all began. Over the next few days, Adam threw himself into modifying the teleportation device. His fingers flew over the control panel, making adjustments and running simulations. But each time he thought he was close to a breakthrough, he found himself making excuses to check on Tara. "I need to run some additional tests," he told Dr. Petrov, his heart racing as he entered the quarantine area. Tara's face lit up when she saw him, her blue-tinged skin seeming to glow brighter. "Adam," she said, her voice like music to his ears, "I was hoping you'd come." He felt a wave of dizziness wash over him as he approached, stronger than before. Tara reached out, her fingers brushing his arm. The touch sent electricity coursing through his body. "Tell me about your world," Adam said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Your technology, your culture. It could help us find a way to send you back." Tara's eyes sparkled with what Adam thought was curiosity, but there was something more calculating beneath the surface. She began to speak, weaving tales of her home dimension. As she talked, she moved closer, her movements graceful and deliberate. Adam found himself leaning in, hanging on her every word. He didn't notice Dr. Petrov watching from the observation window, her brow furrowed with concern. In her lab, Dr. Petrov pored over the latest test results. Her eyes widened as she analyzed the data on Tara's biology. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the tests again. But the results were clear. Tara's pheromones had addictive properties, potentially influencing human behavior. Dr. Petrov rushed to Commander Jackson's office, her lab coat fluttering behind her. "Sir, we have a problem," she said, presenting her findings. Commander Jackson's face grew grave as he reviewed the data. "Effective immediately, all non-essential contact with the alien is prohibited," he ordered. "Inform Thomas he's to focus solely on the teleportation device." But it was already too late. Word of Tara's presence had spread through the station like wildfire. In the mess hall, 2 junior engineers came to blows over who would bring Tara her next meal. Security Chief Marcus Rodriguez had to physically separate them, his muscular frame straining as he pulled the men apart. "That's enough," Rodriguez barked, his dark eyes flashing with anger. "Anyone else want to act like hormone-crazed teenagers?" The room fell silent, but the tension remained palpable. Rodriguez tapped his communicator. "Commander, we need to implement stricter protocols. The situation is escalating." In his quarters, Adam stared at the screen before him, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He knew the calculations were wrong. He had made them wrong. Each error was a small act of defiance, a way to keep Tara on the station just a little longer. He jumped as his door chimed. Dr. Petrov entered, her face a mask of professional concern. "Adam, I need to talk to you about your work on the teleportation device." Adam felt his heart rate spike. Had she noticed the deliberate mistakes? He forced a smile. "Of course, Elena. What seems to be the problem?" As Dr. Petrov began to question him about the discrepancies in his calculations, Adam's mind raced for plausible explanations. He didn't understand why he was sabotaging his own work, only that he couldn't bear the thought of Tara leaving. Meanwhile, Tara had requested a meeting with Commander Jackson. She sat across from him, her posture regal despite her alien features. "Commander, I have a proposal for you," she began, her voice smooth and persuasive. "My people possess technology far beyond what you've seen. I'm willing to share it in exchange for asylum on your station." Jackson leaned back in his chair, his interest piqued despite his reservations. "That's a generous offer, Tara. But you must understand the complications your presence has already caused." Tara's violet eyes bore into his. "I assure you, Commander, the benefits would far outweigh any temporary disruptions." As Jackson considered her words, the station buzzed with divided opinions. In the hydroponics bay, a heated argument broke out between 2 factions of the crew. "She's a security risk," shouted one technician, her face flushed with anger. "We need to send her back before she contaminates the entire station." "You're just afraid of what we could learn from her," retorted another crew member. "This could be the greatest scientific breakthrough of our time." The ideological split grew deeper with each passing hour, threatening to tear the close-knit community of Nexus 7 apart. In the medical bay, Adam made his decision. He couldn't let them send Tara away. With shaking hands, he disabled the security systems, his engineering knowledge allowing him to bypass the safeguards. "Come with me," he whispered to Tara, helping her out of the quarantine zone. "I'll keep you safe." They made their way through the station's corridors, Adam's heart pounding with each step. He knew he was betraying everything he stood for, but the pull of Tara's presence was too strong to resist. As they reached Adam's quarters, alarms began to blare throughout the station. Security Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention, all personnel. We have a code red situation. The alien visitor is missing. All non-essential crew, return to your quarters immediately." Adam sealed the door to his quarters, turning to face Tara. Her blue-tinged skin seemed to pulse with an inner light, her violet eyes filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Adam," she said, her voice low and intense, "there's something I need to tell you about my people, about why I'm really here." Before she could continue, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Adam's door chimed, then chimed again more insistently. "Thomas!" Rodriguez's voice boomed through the door. "Open up! We know you're in there, and we know you're not alone." Adam looked at Tara, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions and addictive desires. In that moment, he knew he stood at a crossroads, with the fate of both Tara and Nexus 7 hanging in the balance. Adam's heart raced as he stared at Tara, torn between his duty and the overwhelming pull he felt towards her. The pounding on the door grew more insistent. "Thomas, this is your last warning," Rodriguez's voice boomed. "Open this door now." Adam's hand hovered over the door controls, his mind clouded with conflicting impulses. Tara placed her hand on his arm, her touch sending sparks through his body. "Trust me," she whispered, her violet eyes locked onto his. Before Adam could respond, the door hissed open. Rodriguez burst in, flanked by his security team, their weapons raised. Commander Jackson followed close behind, his face a mask of stern authority. "Stand down, Thomas," Jackson ordered, his voice sharp with command. Adam moved to shield Tara, his body tense and ready for confrontation. "Sir, please, just let me explain." His words were cut short as Tara stepped forward, her blue-tinged skin seeming to glow with an inner light. She took a deep breath and released a cloud of invisible pheromones, more potent than anything she had produced before. The effect was instantaneous. Rodriguez and his men lowered their weapons, their eyes glazing over. Even Commander Jackson swayed on his feet, his stern expression melting into one of confusion. Adam, already deep under Tara's influence, felt the world spin around him. He grabbed Tara's hand and pulled her towards the door. "Now's our chance," he hissed. They slipped past the disoriented security team and into the corridor. Alarms blared as they ran, the sound echoing off the metal walls. Adam's engineering knowledge guided them to a maintenance hatch, and they quickly disappeared into the bowels of the station. As they navigated the narrow tunnels, the acrid smell of industrial lubricants filled the air. The dim emergency lighting cast long shadows, making the passage feel claustrophobic and endless. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the gloom ahead. Dr. Elena Petrov stood before them, her face a mixture of concern and perseverance. "Adam, stop," she said, holding up her hands. "You need to listen to me. The prolonged exposure to Orion pheromones is affecting your brain chemistry. It's not just attraction you're feeling, it's addiction." Adam hesitated, his grip on Tara's hand loosening slightly. "What are you talking about, Elena?" Dr. Petrov took a cautious step forward. "The pheromones are causing neurological changes. The longer you're exposed, the more permanent the effects become. You're not thinking clearly, Adam." For a moment, clarity broke through the haze in Adam's mind. He looked at Tara, then back at Dr. Petrov, uncertainty clouding his features. Tara squeezed his hand, her voice low and urgent. "Adam, we need to keep moving." Before he could respond, Commander Jackson's voice echoed through the station's intercom system. "Attention all personnel. Nexus 7 is now under full lockdown. All crew members are to return to their quarters immediately. Environmental systems are being adjusted to neutralize foreign biochemical agents." The air around them began to change, growing cooler and drier. Adam felt a slight clearing in his thoughts, like waking from a deep sleep. He shook his head, trying to focus. Dr. Petrov pressed her advantage. "Come with me, Adam. We can help you." Tara tugged at his arm, pulling him deeper into the maintenance tunnels. "We're so close, Adam. Don't let them separate us now." Torn between reason and desire, Adam made his choice. He turned away from Dr. Petrov and followed Tara, their footsteps echoing in the narrow passage as they ran. They emerged into the hydroponics bay, a vast chamber filled with lush vegetation. The air was thick with humidity and the rich scent of earth and growing things. For a moment they paused, catching their breath. Tara inhaled deeply, her eyes widening. "These plants," she whispered, reaching out to touch a broad leaf. "They're so similar to those on my world." As her fingers brushed the foliage, a change came over her. Her skin flushed a deeper blue, and the air around her seemed to shimmer. Adam felt a wave of dizziness wash over him, stronger than anything he had experienced before. "Tara," he said, his voice hoarse. "What's happening?" She turned to him, her violet eyes blazing with an otherworldly intensity. "Adam," she breathed, reaching for him. Their bodies collided, all thoughts of escape forgotten. They sank to the ground, hidden among the dense foliage. The plants seemed to curl around them, creating a secluded bower. Time lost all meaning as they gave in to their mutual attraction. Adam's world narrowed to the feeling of Tara's skin against his, the taste of her lips, the sound of her breath. He was vaguely aware of a distant commotion, but it seemed unimportant compared to the sensations overwhelming him. Suddenly, harsh light flooded the hydroponics bay. Security Chief Rodriguez's voice cut through the haze of Adam's consciousness. "Over here! We've found them!" Rough hands pulled Adam and Tara apart. Through blurred vision, Adam saw Rodriguez and his team, their faces obscured by strange masks. He felt a sharp sting in his arm, and the world began to fade to black. As consciousness slipped away, Adam's last sight was Tara being led away, her violet eyes locked on his until the darkness claimed him. In the command center, Commander Jackson rubbed his temples, trying to process the events of the past few hours. The senior staff gathered around him, their faces grim. "Status report," he demanded. Dr. Petrov stepped forward, her tablet displaying a complex array of bio-readings. "Sir, the alien, Tara, is showing signs of a unique biological process. It appears that her encounter with Adam may have initiated some form of reproductive cycle." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Commander Jackson opened his mouth to respond when his comm unit chimed urgently. "Commander," came the voice of his communications officer, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Central Command. They're sending a special envoy to assess the situation." Jackson's lips pursed. He looked around at his senior staff, seeing the same mix of apprehension and uncertainty he felt reflected in their eyes. The situation on Nexus 7, already complex and dangerous, had just become a potential diplomatic incident. As alarms continued to sound throughout the station, Jackson knew that the real challenges were only beginning. The fate of Adam, Tara, and possibly the future of human-Orion relations now hung in the balance. The alarms continued to echo through Nexus 7 as Commander Jackson stood in the command center, his brow furrowed with concern. The situation had spiraled far beyond anything he had anticipated when Tara first arrived on the station. Now, with Adam compromised and a potential diplomatic crisis looming, Jackson knew he needed reinforcements. As if on cue, his communications officer's voice cut through the tension. "Commander, a ship is approaching. It's the special envoy from Earth Central Command." Jackson straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. "Inform them they have clearance to dock. I'll meet them in the main hangar." Minutes later, Jackson stood alongside Dr. Petrov and Security Chief Rodriguez as the airlock hissed open. Admiral Marcus Blackwood stepped onto the station, his piercing gaze taking in the assembled welcoming committee. Behind him, a team of specialists filed out, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Commander Jackson," Blackwood said, his voice carrying the weight of authority, "I understand we have a situation here." Jackson nodded, gesturing for the Admiral to follow him. "Sir, if you'll come with me, we'll brief you on the full extent of our predicament." As they walked, Jackson provided a concise summary of recent events. Blackwood listened intently, his face betraying no emotion. When they reached the command center, he turned to address the senior staff. "I want a complete reevaluation of all containment protocols," Blackwood ordered, "and I need to see both the human, Adam Thomas, and the alien, Tara, as soon as possible." Dr. Petrov stepped forward, her tablet displaying a complex array of bio readings. "Admiral, there's something you should know. Our latest scans indicate that Terra's biology has initiated a fertilization process. We believe there's a high likelihood of a successful hybrid pregnancy." A hush fell over the room. Blackwood's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. "This changes things," he said finally. "Dr. Petrov, I want you and your team to conduct a thorough examination of both Adam and Tara. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here." Over the next few hours, Adam and Tara underwent extensive medical tests in separate containment units. The station buzzed with activity as Blackwood's team of xenobiologists and diplomats pored over data and debated the implications of this unprecedented situation. As the day wore on, Blackwood made a decision that would alter the course of events on Nexus 7. "We need to arrange a controlled meeting between Adam and Tara," he announced. "It's crucial that we observe their interaction now that Adam is free from the intense influence of her pheromones." A specialized isolation chamber was quickly prepared, equipped with advanced pheromone filtration systems. Under the watchful eyes of Dr. Petrov and a team of medical professionals, Adam and Tara were brought face-to-face for the first time since their separation. Adam's heart raced as he saw Tara enter the chamber. Her blue-tinged skin seemed paler than he remembered, and her violet eyes held a mix of apprehension and something else he couldn't quite identify. As the haze of her pheromones cleared from his mind, he felt a surge of conflicting emotions. "Tara," he said, his voice hoarse, I don't know what to say." Tara took a step towards him, her movements graceful despite the gravity of the situation. "Adam," she began, "there's so much I need to tell you. About my people, about why I'm here, about us." As Tara spoke, revealing the desperate plight of her species and their need for genetic diversity, Adam felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The potential consequences of their actions, a hybrid child, a bridge between two species, began to sink in. Outside the chamber, Admiral Blackwood watched the interaction with intense focus. As Tara finished her explanation, he turned to Commander Jackson. "This changes the entire scope of our mission," he said. "We're no longer dealing with just a security breach or a scientific curiosity. This is now a matter of interspecies diplomacy and potentially the survival of an entire race." Jackson nodded, understanding the implications. "What do you propose, Admiral?" Blackwood's eyes never left the isolation chamber as he spoke. "We're going to allow this experiment to continue. Under strict medical supervision, we'll permit the hybrid pregnancy to proceed." The announcement sent shockwaves through the station. Crew members gathered in small groups, their voices a mix of excitement and concern as they discussed the implications of Blackwood's decision. In the medical bay, Dr. Petrov and her team began preparations for what would undoubtedly be the most challenging and groundbreaking project of their careers. Equipment was recalibrated, protocols were rewritten, and a section of the bay was cordoned off to serve as a specialized maternity ward. Security Chief Rodriguez, meanwhile, implemented a new set of stringent security measures. Access to certain areas of the station was restricted, patrols were increased, and new monitoring systems were installed to prevent any unauthorized interactions with Tara. As night fell on Nexus 7, Adam lay awake in his quarters, his mind racing. The events of the past few days played on repeat in his head. His attraction to Tara, the overwhelming influence of her pheromones, their desperate flight through the station, and now the mind-boggling reality of a potential hybrid child. He thought of Tara, alone in her containment unit, carrying a life that was part him and part her, a life that represented hope for her people and a new chapter in human history. The enormity of it all threatened to overwhelm him. Just as Adam was about to drift off into an uneasy sleep, his comm unit chimed. It was Commander Jackson. "Thomas," Jackson's voice was tight with tension. "Report to the command center immediately. We've just received word from Earth Central Command. The news of our situation has spread. We're about to become the center of a galactic storm." Adam rose quickly, his fatigue forgotten. As he made his way through the corridors of Nexus 7, he could feel the eyes of his fellow crew members on him. Some looked at him with awe, others with suspicion. He realized that his life and the lives of everyone on this station would never be the same. The doors to the command center hissed open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Admiral Blackwood stood at the center, issuing rapid-fire orders as screens displayed incoming messages from across human space. Commander Jackson beckoned Adam over, his face grim. "Thomas," Jackson said, "I hope you're ready, because like it or not, you're about to become the face of the most significant event in human history since first contact." Adam swallowed hard, looking at the screens filled with reports of the hybrid pregnancy. As he stood there, caught in the swirling currents of interstellar politics and scientific breakthrough, he couldn't help but wonder what the future held for him, for Tara, and for the child that might change everything. Everything they knew about the universe. As Adam absorbed the gravity of Commander Jackson's words, the command center erupted into a flurry of activity. Screens flickered with incoming transmissions, and the air buzzed with urgent conversations. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos, issuing rapid-fire orders to his team. "Thomas," Blackwood called, gesturing for Adam to join him at the central console. "We need to brief you on the latest developments." Adam made his way through the busy room, acutely aware of the sideways glances and hushed whispers that followed him. As he reached the Admiral, Dr. Petrov appeared at his side, her face a mixture of excitement and concern. "Adam," she began, her voice low and steady, "Tara's pregnancy is progressing at an unprecedented rate. We've never seen anything like it." Before Adam could respond, the main doors hissed open, revealing a team of new arrivals. A tall woman with piercing green eyes strode purposefully into the room, followed by a group of scientists carrying specialized equipment. Admiral Blackwood stepped forward to greet her. "Dr. Amelia Graves, I presume. Thank you for arriving so quickly." Dr. Graves nodded curtly, her eyes already scanning the room. "Admiral, we need to begin our work immediately. Time is of the essence." As Dr. Graves and her team set up their equipment, Adam found himself ushered into a nearby conference room. Commander Jackson and Dr. Petrov joined him, along with a stern-looking woman he didn't recognize. "Adam," Jackson said, "this is Dr. Lena Chen, our chief psychologist. She'll be conducting a series of evaluations to assess the long-term effects of your exposure to Tara's pheromones." Over the next few hours, Adam underwent a battery of tests and interviews. As he answered questions and performed cognitive tasks, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed within him. It wasn't until Dr. Chen presented her findings that his suspicions were confirmed. "Mr. Thomas," she said, her voice clinical and detached, "our tests indicate that while the immediate influence of Tara's pheromones has diminished, your neurochemistry shows permanent alterations. In essence, you've developed a lasting bond with Tara and your unborn child." Adam's mind reeled at the implications. As he struggled to process this information, an alarm blared through the station's speakers. Commander Jackson's comm unit crackled to life. "Commander," came the urgent voice of Security Chief Rodriguez, "we have a situation in Section C. A group of crew members is attempting to breach the secure area near Tara's quarters." Jackson's face hardened. "I'm on my way," he said, turning to Adam. "Thomas, stay here. We'll continue this discussion later." As Jackson left, Adam found himself alone with Dr. Petrov. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Adam, there's something else you should know. Admiral Blackwood has initiated contact with Orion representatives from Tara's universe." Adam's eyes widened. "How is that possible?" Dr. Petrov explained how they had modified the teleportation device that brought Tara to Nexus 7, using it to establish a secure communication channel. "The Orions are fascinated by the success of the cross-species fertilization," she said. "They've offered to share advanced medical knowledge to support the pregnancy." Just then, Dr. Graves burst into the room, her face flushed with excitement. "Dr. Petrov, you need to see this," she said, thrusting a tablet into the other woman's hands. "The Orions have transmitted data on their species biology and genetic makeup. This changes everything." As the two scientists pored over the new information, Adam felt a sudden, overwhelming need to see Tara. He made his way to the door, only to find his path blocked by a security officer. "I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas," the officer said, "but for your safety and the safety of others, your movements are currently restricted." Frustration welled up inside Adam. He opened his mouth to protest when a wave of dizziness washed over him. Strange images flashed through his mind, alien landscapes, unfamiliar stars, and at the center of it all, a small, pulsing light that seemed to call to him. As quickly as it came, the vision faded. Adam steadied himself against the wall, his heart racing. He looked up to see Dr. Petrov watching him with concern. "Adam?" she asked, moving towards him. "Are you all right?" Before he could answer, Commander Jackson's voice came over the station-wide comm system. "Attention all personnel. Due to recent events, we are implementing new security protocols. Certain areas of the station will be off-limits to non-essential personnel. Please check your assigned data pads for updated access information." The announcement was met with a chorus of confused murmurs from the nearby corridors. Adam could sense the tension building among the crew, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and resentment. Dr. Graves looked up from her work, her expression grave. "We need to move quickly," she said. "The fetus is developing at an accelerated rate. We're in uncharted territory here." As the medical team rushed to adapt their protocols, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that the strange vision he'd experienced was somehow connected to his unborn child. He knew he had to find a way to be more involved, to protect Tara and their baby from whatever challenges lay ahead. The air on Nexus 7 crackled with a palpable energy as crew members whispered about strange dreams and unexplained power fluctuations. Adam stood at the viewport in his quarters, staring out at the stars, wondering what the future held for him, for Tara, and for the child that was already reshaping the very fabric of their existence. Universe. As Adam contemplated the vastness of space, a sudden jolt of energy coursed through the station, causing the lights to flicker and dim momentarily. He steadied himself against the wall, his heart racing as he realized the source of the disturbance. Over the next few months, these power fluctuations became increasingly frequent and intense. The station's engineering team worked tirelessly to stabilize the systems, but their efforts seemed futile against the growing energy surges emanating from Tara's quarters. Dr. Graves and her team made a startling discovery during a routine scan of Tara's rapidly developing fetus. The child's brain activity correlated directly with the station's power fluctuations, suggesting an unprecedented ability to manipulate energy fields. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Graves explained to Admiral Blackwood, her eyes alight with a mixture of excitement and concern. "The hybrid child appears to be unconsciously affecting Nexus 7 systems. We've never seen anything like this before." Blackwood's brow furrowed as he processed the information. "What are the implications for the station's safety?" "At this rate, the energy emissions could overwhelm our systems," Dr. Graves replied. "We need to take immediate action to protect both the station and the child." After a moment of contemplation, Blackwood made his decision. "Begin construction on a specialized containment unit for Tara and the child. It needs to be operational before the birth." As work on the containment unit progressed, news of the hybrid's unique abilities spread through the station. Crew members spoke in hushed tones, their conversations a mix of wonder and fear. Adam found himself at the center of it all, acutely aware of the sideways glances and whispered speculations that followed him through the corridors. The situation took another turn when the Orion representatives, communicating through the modified teleportation device, expressed their growing concern about the hybrid's unprecedented abilities. Their request to send a small delegation to observe the final stages of pregnancy and the birth sent ripples of tension through the station's command staff. After intense deliberation with Earth Central Command, Admiral Blackwood reluctantly agreed to the Orion request. "We need to maintain diplomatic relations," he explained to his senior staff. "This gesture could be crucial for future interactions between our species." The arrival of the Orion delegation, led by the renowned geneticist Dr. Zara, caused a stir among the human crew. Many had never seen an Orion in person before, and the sight of the blue-skinned, violet-eyed aliens moving through the station was both fascinating and unsettling. Security Chief Rodriguez implemented strict protocols to manage interactions between the Orion delegation and the station's personnel. "We can't risk any pheromone-related incidents," he warned his team. "Keep them separated from non-essential personnel at all times." As Tara entered the third trimester of her pregnancy, her health began to deteriorate rapidly. The medical team, now a combination of human and Orion experts, worked around the clock to develop new treatments to stabilize her condition. Adam, despite his own struggles with the lingering effects of pheromone exposure, spent every allowed moment by Tara's side. His presence seemed to have a calming effect on both Tara and the increasingly active fetus. During one of his visits, Tara grasped Adam's hand weakly. "I'm scared, Adam," she whispered, her violet eyes filled with fear. "What if I'm not strong enough to bring this child into the world?" Adam squeezed her hand gently. "You're the strongest person I know, Tara. We're all here for you, and we'll get through this together." As he spoke, the lights in the medical bay flickered, and a low hum filled the air. The fetus, responding to Adam's voice, had triggered another energy surge. Dr. Petrov rushed to Tara's side, adjusting the equipment to compensate for the disturbance. "The child's abilities are growing stronger," she said, her voice tight with concern. "We need to move Tara to the containment unit as soon as possible." The transfer to the newly constructed containment unit was a tense affair. As Tara was carefully moved, the station experienced a series of power outages, plunging entire sections into darkness. Crew members scrambled to restore essential systems, their faces etched with worry. In the command center, Commander Jackson faced a difficult decision. The safety of the station and its crew was at risk, but moving Tara off station could jeopardize both her life and that of the child. After intense debate with Admiral Blackwood and the medical team, Jackson initiated emergency protocols, preparing the station for potential evacuation, while also reinforcing the medical bay to withstand energy surges. As the due date approached, the situation on Nexus 7 reached a critical point. Tara went into premature labor, triggering a station-wide alert. The medical bay was immediately locked down, with only essential personnel allowed access. Dr. Petrov led the delivery team, assisted by Dr. Zara and the Orion scientists. As Tara's contractions intensified, the station experienced a series of violent power outages. Systems failed temporarily, and panic spread among the crew. In the delivery room, Adam stood by Tara's side, his presence seemingly calming both mother and child. As the moment of birth approached, the energy emissions suddenly stabilized, allowing the medical team to focus fully on the delivery. "I can see the head," Dr. Petrov announced, her voice filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "One more push, Tara. You're doing great." As Tara gathered her strength for the final push, Adam held her hand tightly, his heart pounding in anticipation. The air in the room crackled with energy, and everyone present held their breath, knowing they were about to witness a moment that would change the course of human-alien relations forever. Forever. The tension in the delivery room reached its peak as Tara gave her final push. Suddenly, a blinding flash of energy erupted from her body, engulfing the entire room in a brilliant white light. The medical equipment sparked and fizzled, and the station's lights flickered wildly before plunging into darkness. For a moment, all was silent, except for the sound of labored breathing and the faint hum of emergency backup systems struggling to activate. Then a piercing cry cut through the darkness, followed by Dr. Petrov's breathless announcement. "It's a girl," she said, her voice filled with awe. "A healthy, hybrid girl." As the backup generators kicked in, casting the room in a soft amber glow, Adam blinked away the after images and looked down at Tara. She was exhausted but radiant, her violet eyes fixed on the tiny bundle Dr. Petrov was carefully wrapping in a sterile blanket. "Lyra," Tara whispered, reaching out for her daughter. "Her name is Lyra." As Dr. Petrov placed the newborn in Tara's arms, Adam caught his first glimpse of his daughter. Lyra's skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, neither fully human nor Orion, but a mesmerizing blend of both. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, seemed to shift colors like a kaleidoscope, reflecting the dim light of the room. The moment was interrupted by Commander Jackson's voice crackling over the comm system. "Medical Bay, report status. What just happened?" Dr. Petrov moved to respond, but before she could, Admiral Blackwood's authoritative tone cut through. "All personnel, this is Admiral Blackwood. The evacuation order is hereby canceled. Initiate station-wide lockdown protocols immediately. I repeat, initiate station-wide lockdown." As the station's security measures engaged, Dr. Zara and her team of Orion scientists approached Tara's bed, their expressions a mix of curiosity and excitement. "With your permission," Dr. Zara said softly, We'd like to begin some non-invasive examinations of the child. Tara hesitated, instinctively pulling Lyra closer to her chest. Adam felt a surge of protectiveness, his hand moving to rest on Tara's shoulder. But after a moment, Tara nodded, allowing Dr. Zara to approach. The Orion scientist's movements were gentle and precise as she ran a series of scans over Lyra's tiny form. Her eyes widened as she studied the results. "Fascinating," she murmured. "There appears to be an organ here, unlike anything in human or Orion anatomy. It seems to be the source of her energy manipulation abilities." As the examination continued, Adam noticed a change in the air around them. The medical equipment, which had been damaged by the energy surge, began to flicker back to life. The lights in the room brightened and dimmed in a rhythmic pattern that seemed to match Lyra's breathing. Dr. Graves, who had been monitoring the station's systems, rushed into the room. "The power fluctuations," she said, gesturing to the pulsing lights. "They're coming from her. She's already affecting the station's energy grid." The news spread quickly through Nexus 7, and within days, a specialized team from Earth Central Command arrived. Led by Dr. Victor Reeves, a tall, stern-faced man with piercing gray eyes, the team of xenobiologists and government officials wasted no time in setting up their equipment in an adjacent lab. As the days passed, Adam found himself growing increasingly agitated. The constant stream of scientists and officials examining Lyra grated on his nerves. He refused to leave Tara and Lyra's side, often positioning himself between them and the approaching medical staff. Dr. Petrov noticed Adam's behavior with concern. After a particularly tense interaction where Adam nearly shouted at a nurse trying to check Lyra's vitals, she pulled him aside. "Adam," she said gently, "I understand your desire to protect them, but your behavior is becoming disruptive. I'm ordering a full psychological evaluation, and until it's complete, I'm restricting your access to the medical bay." Adam's face contorted with anger and disbelief. "You can't do that," he growled. "She's my daughter. I have rights." But Dr. Petrov's decision stood, and Adam found himself escorted out of the medical bay by security personnel. As the doors closed behind him, he could hear Lyra beginning to cry, and it took all of his willpower not to try and force his way back in. Meanwhile, Lyra's development continued to astound the scientific team. Within days of her birth, she was demonstrating cognitive abilities far beyond those of human or Orion infants. Dr. Reeves and his team worked tirelessly, documenting every milestone and peculiarity. But the most remarkable development came when Tara reported hearing Lyra's thoughts in her mind. At first, the medical team was skeptical, but soon Adam began experiencing the same phenomenon. Lyra was communicating telepathically, forming a unique family bond that transcended species barriers. As news of Lyra's abilities spread, tension on the station grew. Security Chief Rodriguez found himself dealing with an increasing number of incident reports from crew members, experiencing vivid dreams and unexplained sensations. He implemented strict protocols to monitor and report any unusual occurrences, fearing that Lyra's influence could compromise station security. The situation reached a boiling point when a group of human supremacist extremists who had infiltrated the station's crew attempted to kidnap Lyra. They believed the hybrid child represented a threat to human genetic purity and planned to eliminate her. The attack came in the early hours of the morning. Alarms blared through the station as the extremists fought their way towards the medical bay. Security Chief Rodriguez and his team rushed to intercept them, engaging in a firefight in the corridors leading to Lyra's location. Inside the medical bay, Tara clutched Lyra to her chest, her eyes wide with fear. Dr. Zara and her Orion colleagues formed a protective circle around them, while Dr. Petrov worked frantically to secure the bay's doors. As the sounds of battle drew closer, Lyra began to cry. Suddenly, a wave of energy pulsed through the room, shorting out the lights and causing the medical equipment to spark and smoke. The energy continued to build, creating a shimmering barrier around Tara and Lyra. Outside, the extremists found themselves unable to breach the medical bay's defenses. Security Chief Rodriguez and his team quickly overwhelmed them, neutralizing the threat. But as the dust settled, it became clear that the incident had changed everything. Admiral Blackwood, his face grim, called an emergency meeting with Commander Jackson, Dr. Reeves, and the Orion delegation. "We need to create a special task force," he announced. "A combined team of human and Orion personnel to protect Lyra and study her abilities. This situation has escalated beyond our initial expectations." As plans for the task force were put into motion, Nexus 7 found itself at the center of a rapidly changing galactic landscape. The station, once a simple research outpost, had become the focal point of human-alien relations and the birthplace of a new hybrid species. In the medical bay, Tara held Lyra close, singing softly to her daughter as the child's eyes shifted colors in the dim light. Adam, finally allowed to return after his psychological evaluation, sat beside them, his hand resting protectively on Tara's shoulder. As Lyra drifted off to sleep, the lights in the room pulsed gently, a reminder of the incredible power contained within her tiny form. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. The birth of Lyra had set in motion events that would shape the destiny of both humanity and the Orion species for generations to come. In the weeks following the attack, Nexus 7 transformed into a fortress of scientific discovery. The newly established Special Task Force worked tirelessly to create a secure living area for Tara, Adam, and Lyra. The family's quarters, nestled deep within the station's core, became a hub of activity as researchers from both human and Orion contingents flocked to study the unprecedented hybrid child. Dr. Graves and Dr. Zara led the research efforts, their contrasting approaches complementing each other as they delved into the mysteries of Lyra's unique physiology. They watched in awe as the child's abilities expanded at an exponential rate. One afternoon, as Dr. Graves calibrated a series of sensors around Lyra's play area, the lights in the room began to flicker. At first, she attributed it to a power fluctuation, but then she noticed Lyra's intense focus on a toy floating in midair. "Dr. Zara, come quickly," she called, her voice hushed with excitement. The Orion scientist hurried over, her eyes widening as she observed the scene. Lyra, barely a month old but already displaying the cognitive abilities of a much older child, was manipulating the station's energy field to levitate her toy. "Incredible," Dr. Zara murmured, her fingers flying over a data pad as she recorded the event. "She's consciously controlling the energy fields." As the days passed, Lyra's control over her abilities grew stronger. She began to affect the station's power systems with mere thoughts, causing both excitement and alarm among the research team. Dr. Graves initiated a series of carefully controlled experiments to understand and harness Lyra's talents, while Dr. Zara focused on mapping the child's unique neural pathways. Meanwhile, Adam underwent an intensive treatment program designed by Dr. Petrov. The medical bay became his second home as he struggled to stabilize his neurochemistry without losing the emotional connection to his family. "How are you feeling today, Adam?" Dr. Petrov asked during one of their sessions. Adam rubbed his temples, his expression conflicted. "Better, I think. The headaches are less frequent now, but I still feel off balance when I'm away from Tara and Lyra." Dr. Petrov nodded, making notes on her tablet. "That's to be expected. We're making progress, but it's a delicate process. We need to ensure your brain chemistry stabilizes without compromising the bonds you've formed." As Adam's condition improved, he was gradually allowed more unrestricted access to his family, though always under close observation. The joy on Lyra's face when her father entered the room was matched only by the palpable relief in Tara's eyes. The presence of the Orion delegation on Nexus 7 led to unexpected developments. Human crew members, initially wary of their alien counterparts, began to form close relationships with the Orion scientists. Shared meals in the mess hall became opportunities for cultural exchange, and soon impromptu language lessons could be heard in the corridors. Admiral Blackwood observed these interactions with growing interest. During a meeting with Commander Jackson, he broached the subject. "Maybe it's time we reconsidered our separation protocols," he mused, watching a group of human and Orion scientists engage in animated discussion over coffee. Commander Jackson nodded thoughtfully. "It could improve morale and productivity, and if we're going to move forward with interspecies cooperation, this seems like a natural first step." The arrival of Dr. Elena Kostova and her team marked the beginning of Project Starforge. The classified program aimed to develop new energy technologies based on Lyra's unique physiology. Dr. Kostova, a brilliant physicist with a no-nonsense attitude, wasted no time in setting up her lab and integrating with the existing research teams. "We're on the brink of something revolutionary," she announced during the first project meeting. "If we can harness even a fraction of the energy manipulation capabilities Lyra has demonstrated, we could solve Earth's energy crisis overnight." Weeks of intense work culminated in the construction of the first prototype energy converter. The device, a sleek cylinder glowing with an otherworldly blue light, stood in the center of Dr. Kostova's lab. As the research team gathered for the initial test, the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Dr. Kostova input the final commands, and the converter hummed to life. Energy readings spiked, then stabilized at levels far beyond their most optimistic projections. The implications were staggering. Clean, virtually limitless energy was now within reach. News of Project Starforge's success spread like wildfire, despite the station's best efforts to contain it. Earth Central Command was inundated with inquiries from governments and corporations eager to secure access to the new technology. The Orion leadership, recognizing the potential shift in the balance of power, moved quickly to propose a formal alliance with Earth. Commander Jackson found himself working around the clock to manage the influx of communications and maintain order on the station. He implemented strict information control protocols, monitoring all external transmissions, and temporarily suspending non-essential communications. The tension on the station was palpable. Crew members, cut off from regular contact with their families, grew restless. Whispered conversations in corners became a common sight, as speculation about the future ran rampant. Amidst this charged atmosphere, a series of unexplained equipment malfunctions began to occur across Nexus 7. Lights flickered, doors jammed, and computer systems glitched at random intervals. Security Chief Rodriguez led a thorough investigation, but it was Dr. Graves who made the crucial connection. "These incidents," she explained during an emergency meeting, "they all coincide with periods of intense emotional stress for Lyra. Her nightmares, her tantrums, they're directly affecting the station's systems." The revelation sent shockwaves through the research team. If Lyra's abilities were tied to her emotional state, it posed new challenges for both her care and the safety of the station. Security Chief Rodriguez, his face grim, proposed a solution. "We need to implement a new security system, one that can detect and neutralize unauthorized energy manipulations, and we'll use Lyra's unique energy signature as the baseline." As the new security measures were put in place, Dr. Kostova's team made a startling discovery. Analysis of Lyra's latest medical scans revealed cellular-level changes that defied explanation. "Her body is evolving," Dr. Kostova announced, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "It's as if she's adapting to the unique environment of Nexus 7. We may be witnessing the development of abilities beyond energy manipulation." The implications of this discovery rippled through the station, setting the stage for a new phase of research into the limits of human-Orion hybrid potential. As the sun set on another day aboard Nexus 7, the station hummed with the energy of scientific breakthrough and the promise of a future yet to be written. As Nexus 7 hummed with the energy of scientific breakthrough, the station's research teams were about to face challenges far beyond their initial expectations. Dr. Graves and Dr. Zara, still reeling from the discovery of Lyra's cellular evolution, found themselves thrust into a new realm of scientific inquiry. One morning, as Lyra played in her specially designed observation room, Dr. Graves noticed something extraordinary. The child, now several months old but developing at an unprecedented rate, reached out towards a toy floating just beyond her grasp. Instead of using her energy manipulation abilities, Lyra's brow furrowed in concentration, and the toy began to change shape, its molecular structure visibly shifting until it formed a perfect sphere. Dr. Graves gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Dr. Zara, are you seeing this?" The Orion scientist nodded, her eyes wide with amazement. "She's manipulating matter at a molecular level. This is incredible." The two scientists exchanged a look of both excitement and trepidation. Lyra's abilities were expanding far beyond their initial projections, and the implications were staggering. Over the next few days, Dr. Graves and Dr. Zara worked tirelessly to design a series of controlled experiments to test the limits of Lyra's new abilities. They set up a secure laboratory adjacent to the family's living quarters, filling it with various materials and objects for Lyra to interact with. During one of these tests, Lyra sat in the center of the room, surrounded by sensors and cameras. Dr. Graves placed a small piece of standard station equipment in front of her, encouraging her to explore it with her newfound abilities. Lyra reached out, her tiny fingers splayed towards the object. The air around her seemed to shimmer, and the equipment began to change. Its surface rippled like water, the metal twisting and reforming into an entirely new shape. When the process finished, a gleaming object sat before them, its composition unlike anything they had seen before. Dr. Zara quickly scanned the transformed object, her eyes widening as she read the results. This alloy, it's something entirely new. The tensile strength, the conductivity, it's off the charts. The incident prompted immediate action from Admiral Blackwood. He called an emergency meeting with Commander Jackson, Dr. Graves, and Dr. Zara. "We need to establish stricter containment protocols," Blackwood announced, his voice grave. "Lyra's abilities are growing faster than we can predict. We can't risk any accidental alterations to critical station systems." As the research team implemented new safety measures, Adam's treatment program with Dr. Petrov showed promising results. His neurochemistry stabilized, allowing him to interact with Tara and Lyra without the overwhelming influence of Orion pheromones. One afternoon, Adam sat with Tara in their quarters, watching Lyra play. He reached out and took Tara's hand, his touch gentle and controlled. "How are you feeling?" Tara asked, her eyes searching his face. Adam smiled, a genuine expression that reached his eyes. "Better than I have in months. It's like I can finally see clearly. My love for you, for Lyra, it's not just a chemical reaction anymore. It's real, and it's mine." Tara leaned into him, relief evident in her posture. Their moment of peace was short-lived, however, as alarms began to blare throughout the station. Commander Jackson's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel, report to your designated secure areas. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Adam and Tara exchanged worried glances as they gathered Lyra and hurried to their assigned safe room. The station buzzed with activity as crew members rushed to their posts, the atmosphere thick with tension. In the command center, Admiral Blackwood stood before a holographic display, his face grim as he addressed a newly arrived delegation from Earth Central Command. "General Steele," Blackwood nodded to the imposing figure at the head of the group. "Welcome to Nexus 7. I apologize for the alarms, but as you can see, we're dealing with a rapidly evolving situation." General Victor Steele, a tall man with steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes, surveyed the command center with a critical gaze. "No need for apologies, Admiral. I'm here to assess the situation and determine the best course of action for Project Starforge and the hybrid child." Blackwood's expression resolute almost imperceptibly. "Of course, General. We'll provide you with full access to our research data and facilities. However, I must stress that the safety and well-being of Lyra and her family are our top priorities." Steele's eyes narrowed. "Understood, Admiral, but let's not forget the potential implications of this child's abilities. The security of Earth and our colonies must be taken into account." As the two men stared each other down, the tension in the room palpable, an alarm blared from a nearby console. A young lieutenant called out, "Sir, we're detecting an unauthorized energy signature in Section 4B. Blackwood turned to the display, his face paling as he recognized the location. "That's near Lyra's quarters. General, I'm afraid we'll have to continue this discussion later. Commander Jackson, with me." As Blackwood and Jackson rushed out of the command center, General Steele watched them go, a calculating look in his eyes. The future of Project Starforge hung in the balance, and the arrival of Earth's military presence on Nexus 7 marked the beginning of a new chapter in the unfolding saga of humanity's first hybrid child. Admiral Blackwood and Commander Jackson raced through the corridors of Nexus 7, their footsteps echoing off the metal walls. As they approached Section 4B, the flickering lights and malfunctioning door panels hinted at the source of the disturbance. They found Adam and Tara huddled protectively around Lyra in their quarters, the child's eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Objects in the room floated aimlessly, caught in an invisible energy field. It's happening again, Tara explained, her voice tight with worry. We can't control it. Blackwood exchanged a glance with Jackson. This can't continue, he said quietly. We need a more permanent solution. Over the next few days, as General Steele and his team conducted their assessment, Blackwood spent long hours poring over data and consulting with his senior staff. Finally, he called a meeting with his core team, including Dr. Graves, Dr. Zara, and Security Chief Rodriguez. We're going to construct a specialized facility on a nearby planet, Blackwood announced, bringing up a holographic display of a small, rocky world. I'm calling it Project Haven. Dr. Graves leaned forward, her eyes scanning the preliminary plans. A contained environment where Lyra can develop her abilities safely. Blackwood nodded. Exactly. We'll have full research capabilities, but away from the potential dangers her powers pose to Nexus 7. The team worked tirelessly to flesh out the details of Project Haven. Dr. Kostova's energy converter prototype was integrated into the facility's design, while Rodriguez collaborated with Orion security experts to develop an adaptive defense grid based on Lyra's energy signature. When Blackwood presented the plan to General Steele, the military man's reaction was predictably negative. You can't seriously be considering moving our most valuable asset off station, Steele growled, his fist clenching at his sides. Blackwood stood his ground. It's the best way to ensure everyone's safety while continuing our research. I'm proposing a joint Human-Orion Oversight Committee to allay any concerns about access to the technology. Steele's eyes narrowed, but he didn't immediately reject the idea. It was a start. As preparations for the move accelerated, Dr. Graves and Dr. Zara made a breakthrough in their research. They burst into Blackwood's office one morning, barely containing their excitement. Admiral, we've identified the source of Lyra's abilities, Dr. Zara explained, her antennae twitching with enthusiasm. She's generating a unique quantum field that allows her to interact with matter and energy at a fundamental level. Dr. Graves nodded, adding, This explains her force fields, her molecular manipulation, everything. The discovery added new urgency to the relocation plan. As the launch date approached, Adam and Tara voiced concerns about raising Lyra in isolation. Commander Jackson proposed a solution: establish a small community on Haven, complete with families and support staff. We'll create as normal an environment as possible, Jackson explained to the worried parents, while maintaining all necessary security protocols, of course. The day before the scheduled departure, Lyra demonstrated yet another new ability. As Adam watched in awe, his daughter reached out and seemed to tear a hole in the fabric of space itself. A small, stable wormhole hung in the air, offering a glimpse of the room beyond. Tara! Adam called, his voice a mix of wonder and fear. You need to see this. News of Lyra's latest development spread quickly through the station. General Steele made a last-ditch effort to halt the relocation, sending an urgent communique to Earth Central Command. His request was denied, but the delay ratcheted up tensions among the Nexus 7 crew. On the morning of the launch, Security Chief Rodriguez's team intercepted a group of anti-hybridization extremists attempting to sabotage the transport ship. The resulting firefight left several security officers wounded, but the attackers were subdued. We can't delay any longer, Blackwood told Commander Jackson as they oversaw the final preparations. Get them on that ship and off this station before anything else goes wrong. As the transport ship carrying Lyra, her parents, and the core research team lifted off from Nexus 7, an eerie calm settled over the station. Blackwood watched from the observation deck as the ship grew smaller against the backdrop of stars. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The transport's pilot's voice crackled over the comms. Nexus 7, we're experiencing some kind of energy field interference. Navigation systems are going haywire. On board the ship, Lyra sat in her mother's lap, her eyes glowing brightly. A shimmering energy field surrounded the vessel, protecting it but also disrupting its systems. We're going to have to bring her in manually, the co-pilot announced, his hands dancing over the controls. As Haven came into view, a blue-green orb against the darkness of space, the ship bucked and shuddered. Dr. Graves gripped her seat tightly, watching in fascination as Lyra's energy field seemed to interact with the planet's atmosphere. The readings, she gasped, staring at her datapad. The atmospheric composition, It's changing! With a bone-jarring thud, the ship touched down on the surface of Haven. As the hatch opened, the team was greeted by air that was surprisingly breathable, a perfect blend for both human and Orion physiology. Adam stepped out first, cradling Lyra in his arms. He took a deep breath and looked at Tara in amazement. "It's like she terraformed it for us," he said softly. Dr. Zara nodded, her antennae twitching as she analyzed the environment. This raises so many new questions about the extent of her abilities. As the team began to unload their equipment and set up the Haven facility, Lyra giggled and reached out, her tiny hands grasping at the alien plants that had begun to sprout around them. The vegetation seemed to respond to her touch, growing and changing before their eyes. Adam and Tara exchanged a look of wonder and trepidation. Their journey was far from finished, but at least now they had a safe place to call home, a haven where Lyra could grow, learn, and hopefully unlock the full potential of her extraordinary powers. Back on Nexus 7, Admiral Blackwood stood before a bank of monitors, each displaying data from the fledgling Haven colony. He turned to Commander Jackson, his expression a mix of hope and perseverance. "And so it begins," Blackwood said quietly. "A new chapter in human-Orion relations, and perhaps the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe itself." As the fledgling colony on Haven took root, the true extent of Lyra's extraordinary abilities began to unfold. The young hybrid child, now resembling a preteen despite her tender years, sat cross-legged in the center of a specially designed training room. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she concentrated on the task at hand. Dr. Graves and Dr. Zara watched from behind a protective barrier, their eyes wide with wonder as Lyra manipulated the quantum field around her. With a wave of her hand, she conjured intricate structures of pure energy, weaving them into complex patterns that defied conventional physics. "Incredible," Dr. Zara murmured, her antennae twitching with excitement. "She's creating stable molecular structures out of pure energy." Dr. Graves nodded, her fingers flying across her datapad as she recorded the observations. "The implications are staggering. If we can harness this ability, it could revolutionize everything from construction to medicine." As Lyra's training session intensified, Adam and Tara watched from an adjacent observation room, their faces a mix of pride and concern. Tara reached out and squeezed Adam's hand, seeking reassurance. "She's growing up so fast," Tara said softly. "Sometimes I worry we're pushing her too hard." Adam nodded, his eyes never leaving their daughter. "I know, but she needs to learn control, for her own safety, and for everyone else's." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Lyra's concentration broke, and the energy construct she had been manipulating dissipated in a flash of light. The room's power flickered and died, plunging them into darkness. "Lyra!" Tara called out, her voice tinged with panic. Emergency lights flickered to life, casting an eerie red glow over the scene. Lyra stood in the center of the room, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to—" Dr. Kostova burst into the room, her normally pristine lab coat disheveled. "The energy converter prototype couldn't handle the surge," she explained, her words coming out in a rush. "We need to recalibrate the entire system." As the Haven team worked to restore power and stability to the facility, light years away on Nexus 7, Admiral Blackwood found himself embroiled in a heated debate with Earth Central Command. "We need results, Blackwood." General Steele's holographic image loomed large in the command center. "The potential military applications of the hybrid child's abilities cannot be ignored." Blackwood's mind focused, his patience wearing thin. "With all due respect, General, weaponizing a child is not only unethical, but potentially catastrophic. We need to focus on the scientific and exploratory potential of Lyra's abilities." Commander Jackson stepped forward, her voice steady but firm. "I agree with the Admiral. We have an opportunity here to advance human knowledge and strengthen our alliance with the Orions. Turning this into a military project could jeopardize everything we've worked for." As tensions mounted on Nexus 7, Security Chief Rodriguez prowled the corridors of Haven, his keen eyes searching for any sign of a security breach. The recent attempts to intercept data transmissions had left him on edge. In his office, Rodriguez pored over logs and security feeds, searching for any anomalies. A knock at the door interrupted his concentration. "Chief," one of his lieutenants called out, "we've identified the source of the intrusion attempts. It's not what we expected." Rodriguez's eyes narrowed as he reviewed the new information. "Get me a secure line to Admiral Blackwood," he ordered. "He needs to know about this immediately." As Haven grappled with its internal challenges, a sleek Orion vessel entered orbit around the planet. Dr. Zan, a renowned expert in Orion evolutionary biology, led a team of scientists to the surface. Their arrival sent ripples of excitement and apprehension through the human research team. In a hastily convened meeting, Dr. Zan presented his controversial theory. "We believe that Lyra's abilities may be the result of dormant genetic potential in both human and Orion DNA," he explained, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "The unique combination of our species' genetic material has unlocked capabilities we never dreamed possible." The human scientists exchanged uneasy glances. Dr. Graves leaned forward, her brow furrowed. "Are you suggesting that further hybridization could produce more individuals like Lyra?" Dr. Zan's mandibles clicked in what might have been the Orion equivalent of a smile. "That is precisely what we intend to explore." As the implications of Dr. Zan's theory rippled through the scientific community, Lyra found herself drawn to a different aspect of Haven's research. In a vast hangar at the edge of the facility, a team of engineers worked tirelessly on a prototype interstellar propulsion system. Lyra watched, fascinated, as the engineers made minute adjustments to the sleek, otherworldly device. One of the lead engineers noticed her interest and approached with a friendly smile. "Would you like to take a closer look?" he offered, gesturing toward the prototype. Lyra nodded eagerly, her eyes alight with curiosity. As she stepped closer to the device, she felt a strange resonance with the energy fields pulsing within it. Without thinking, she reached out a hand, her fingers barely brushing the surface of the prototype. The engineers gasped as the propulsion system hummed to life, its energy output suddenly spiking to unprecedented levels. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursing through her. "I think," she said slowly, a smile spreading across her face, "I might be able to help with this." As word of the propulsion breakthrough spread, Admiral Blackwood saw an opportunity to shift the focus away from military applications. In a bold move, he proposed a joint human-Orion mission to explore a nearby star system, using the new technology developed with Lyra's help. The proposal sent shockwaves through both human and Orion societies. While many saw it as a chance for unprecedented cooperation and advancement, others viewed it as a threat to their species' independence. On Haven, Adam and Tara sat with Lyra in their quarters, discussing the possibility of joining the interstellar mission. Lyra's eyes shone with excitement at the prospect of exploring the cosmos. "I've been having these dreams," Lyra confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can see distant worlds, feel the fabric of space itself. It's like the universe is calling to me." Before her parents could respond, an urgent communication from Nexus 7 flashed on their view screen. Admiral Blackwood's face appeared, his expression grave. "We've received intelligence of a potential threat to the hybrid project," he announced, his voice tense. "I need you to be on high alert. The future of human-Orion relations may depend on what happens next." As the transmission ended, Adam, Tara, and Lyra exchanged worried glances. The sanctuary they had found on Haven suddenly felt less secure, and the path forward more uncertain than ever. As the gravity of Admiral Blackwood's warning sank in, Security Chief Rodriguez sprang into action, his training kicking in automatically. "Initiate emergency protocols," Rodriguez barked into his comm unit. "All personnel to their designated stations. This is not a drill." Alarms blared throughout the Haven facility, red warning lights bathing the corridors in an eerie glow. Adam and Tara exchanged a worried glance before turning to Lyra, who stood motionless, her eyes unfocused. "Lyra, honey," Tara said softly, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "We need to move. It's not safe here." Lyra blinked, her gaze sharpening as she looked up at her mother. "I can feel them," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. "They're angry," scared, and so very wrong. Adam knelt beside his daughter, his face etched with concern. Who, Lyra? Who can you feel? The ones who are coming, Lyra replied, her eyes now glowing with an otherworldly light. They call themselves purists, humans and Orions working together, but not for peace. They want to erase me, to erase everything we've done here. As Lyra spoke, Dr. Graves burst into the room, her lab coat askew and her hair disheveled. We've received more details from Nexus 7, she announced breathlessly. A rogue faction of human and Orion extremists have hijacked an advanced warship. They're on their way here now. Adam's eyebrows furrowed as he stood, pulling Lyra close. How long do we have? Dr. Graves shook her head, her expression grim. Not long enough. Admiral Blackwood is coordinating a joint defense fleet, but they won't reach us in time. Tara's eyes hardened with grit. Then we evacuate. We can't risk Lyra or our research falling into their hands. As the Haven team scrambled to gather essential equipment and data, Lyra stood still amidst the chaos, her mind racing. She could sense the fear permeating the facility, the desperate scramble to escape. But beneath it all, she felt something else, a certainty that running away wasn't the answer. Wait, Lyra called out, her voice cutting through the noise and commotion. The adults in the room froze, turning to look at the young hybrid. We can't run away. It won't solve anything. Adam approached his daughter, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. What do you mean, Lyra? Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes meeting her father's. I want to confront them, the purists. I can use my abilities to show them the truth, to help them understand. We don't have to fight. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications of Lyra's words sank in. Tara was the first to speak, her voice tight with worry. Lyra, it's too dangerous. We can't risk your safety. Dr. Zara stepped forward, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. Perhaps Lyra is right. Her abilities have far exceeded our expectations. If anyone can reach these extremists, it's her. Dr. Graves nodded slowly, her mind already racing with possibilities. We could create a device to amplify Lyra's quantum field manipulation. It would allow her to project her powers over a greater distance. And I can modify the energy converter prototype to power it, Dr. Kostova added, her eyes lighting up with the challenge. Adam and Tara exchanged a long look, years of shared experiences and unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Adam turned to Lyra, his expression solemn. Are you sure about this, Lyra? Really sure? Lyra nodded, her young face set with dedication. I am, Dad. It's the right thing to do. As the scientists rushed to prepare the necessary equipment, Security Chief Rodriguez coordinated the remaining security forces, setting up a defensive perimeter around the facility. The air was thick with tension as everyone worked against the clock, knowing that each passing moment brought the purists closer to Haven. In a specially prepared chamber at the heart of the facility, Lyra stood surrounded by a complex array of equipment. The amplification device hummed with energy, connected to the modified converter prototype. Adam and Tara stood nearby, their faces a mix of pride and fear for their extraordinary daughter. Dr. Graves approached Lyra, holding a sleek headset. This will help you focus your abilities, she explained, carefully placing it on Lyra's head. Are you ready? Lyra took a deep breath and nodded. I'm ready. As if on cue, the facility shook with the impact of the first barrage from the Purist warship. Alarms screamed anew as the shield strained under the assault. Now, Lyra, Dr. Zara called out. Focus your power. Lyra closed her eyes, reaching deep within herself. She felt the energy building, swirling around her in invisible currents. With a surge of will, she pushed that energy outward, expanding it far beyond the confines of her body. The chamber filled with a soft, pulsing light as Lyra's quantum field expanded, enveloping not just the facility, but the entire planet and the space around it. Within this vast field, Lyra established a telepathic link, connecting with every mind in range, including those aboard the attacking warship. As the Purists prepared to launch another volley, they suddenly found themselves awash in a sea of foreign sensations and emotions. Lyra's experiences, memories, and the very essence of her hybrid nature flooded their consciousness. On the bridge of the Purist warship, the captain staggered, his hand falling away from the weapons console. What is this?" he gasped, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of empathy and understanding. Throughout the ship, purists of both human and Orion origin found themselves questioning the very foundations of their beliefs. The raw emotion and pure intent behind Lyra's mental projection began to erode even the most deeply held convictions. Back in the Haven facility, Lyra stood at the center of the swirling energy, her eyes glowing with an intense light. Adam and Tara watched in awe as their daughter single-handedly turned the tide of the conflict, not with violence, but with understanding. As the purist determination wavered, Lyra seized the moment. With a thought, she reached out and disabled the warship's weapon systems, her matter manipulation abilities working on a scale never before seen. The attack on Haven ceased, replaced by an eerie calm. In the silence that followed, Lyra expanded her telepathic link further, encompassing the approaching human Orion defense fleet. For the first time in history, humans, Orions, and those who sought to divide them found themselves united in a moment of shared consciousness. As Lyra's power began to ebb, she opened her eyes, a tired smile spreading across her face. "They understand now," she said softly, before collapsing into her parents' arms. Outside the facility, the Purist warship hung motionless in space, its crew no longer the zealots they had been mere hours before. As the defense fleet arrived, they found not a battleground, but a scene of newfound peace and potential. Admiral Blackwood's voice crackled over the comm system, a note of wonder in his tone. "Haven facility, this is Admiral Blackwood. We're reading no hostile activity. What in the blazes happened down there?" Adam looked down at Lyra, who had drifted into an exhausted sleep, then back at the communication panel. "Admiral," he replied, his voice filled with pride and amazement, "I think we've just witnessed the beginning of a new era in human-Orion relations." As the immediate crisis passed, the full implications of Lyra's actions began to unfold. The Purist leaders were taken into custody, but many of their former followers now sought dialogue instead of conflict. Haven, once a hidden research facility, was quickly becoming a symbol of interspecies harmony. Dr. Zan, who had witnessed the entire event, approached Adam and Tara as they watched over their sleeping daughter. "Your child," he said, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with terrifying excitement, "has done more for our peoples in a single day than centuries of diplomacy could have achieved. The potential of human-Orion hybridization is far greater than we ever imagined." As Adam and Tara exchanged a worried glance, both thinking of the challenges that lay ahead for their extraordinary daughter, Lyra stirred in her sleep. A smile played across her lips as she dreamed of a future where the barriers between species fell away and the vast expanse of the cosmos beckoned to be explored.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.